So welcome back, Rebecca. How do you feel after this injection?
Oh, I feel, I look at myself in the mirror, I feel that, wow, look younger.
Oh, that's good.
And just nice for
Good to
Chinese
know.
New Year.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So we know that this is a different type of fillers. It's more natural. It has a substance that is actually have a safer long-term plan, as well as integrate with tissue very well. So what we have done this time with this filler is to actually replace what we lose as we age. The bone structures that's changing, the soft tissue changes, and if you remember, we only use very small amount in different areas. The areas that we targeted, like you say, you feel always kind of look tired. You don't like how the lines, the wrinkles is forming, and you feel like somehow you look very tired, right? So what we really look at when we look at a face that is going through certain degree of aging, not that you're turning into something like a 60-year-old lady, but as we reach our 20 to 25 years old, there are certain areas of the face. We go through certain kind of what we call a bone resorption. That means we lose bone density. We have soft tissue that started to migrate downwards, and that is where we actually put all these fillers in to actually kind of restore it back to where it used to be. So the area that I place in is based on a technique I invented. It's called target specific sandwich technique. It's not a specific cookbook. It has certain guidance towards certain areas that we see with aging. That means the bone structures that goes through resorption through aging. One of it is on the lateral side, on the side of the eyes. If you run your fingers through this bone structure, there's a bone frame over here, and as we age, it becomes more and more shallow. It actually becomes it moves downwards, and hence, because of this downwards movement, what we see is we start to see these lines. We start to see tear trough. In the past, we used to think it's a bone, it's a structure loss or soft tissue loss over there, but that's not true, because when you put too much there, it looks even worse. So the area that we really have to target is on the side of the eyes. We call it the lateral orbital floor. It's a scientific name. That means orbital, this is our eyes. Lateral is on the side. The lateral orbital floor. This floor sort of goes through resorption and it starts to move downwards. It becomes more regress. And that's where we place tiny little bit. The amount, if you remember, I place in is about 0.1 cc. It's only 1/10 of the volume that we use. So in that sense, it actually improved this structure, and we also improve a little bit on the mid-face area, and this is only 0.05.
So it's here and here.
Yes.
And the overall result is to
lift this up.
Lift this up.
And it pulls this. And if you ever want to try, you just pull this up. You realize this lines becomes better. The whole face looks more sharper, and the skin quality also improves. And also it improves this line as well. We did a little bit improvement in here where I put a little bit of fillers here to improve what we call a canine fossa. It's a hole over there. As we go through aging, this also deepens. So I actually place a little bit there just to improve that. So the overall results that you see is that the whole line here improved without me putting the whole syringe in there. We used to put the whole syringe in there, and what will happen is it becomes too heavy. A lot of people's lips have to drop down. So the other areas that we target is some I call it a T-hollow. Is at a hollowing at the temple area, this side area.
This part,
yes.
Painful a bit.
It is slightly painful, but when you place it over there with small amount, what happens is it opens up your eyes. Because this structure support the three muscles that plays a part in our face, and by putting small amount over there, your eyes looks more open. It also brings everything upwards, so you look fresher.
I see. So here, here, and here, right?
Exactly. So you remember when I place it, suddenly you, in one side, you suddenly see the whole eyes looks fresher. And also the other bone structure that we lose volume is what we call a mandible angle. It's at the corner of this bone structure. Because this bone structure become more resolved, everything moves downwards like this. So you start to see this line and this line. When I place a little bit here, just very small amount, you realize that the mouth actually turns up, lifted. These lines also look lesser. So these are areas that we target. So it's very targeted. It's no longer like putting missiles everywhere. We used to do that, and what happened is when you put so much, because you don't have a target, you basically just fill things up. Of course, if you put enough, it will make changes. It will make changes, but it will only last you for a year or two. And what will happen is it becomes too heavy. Everything starts to move downwards, and we have to put more until someone looks like a chipmunk. So we really don't want that to happen. So this target specific sandwich technique is very targeted. It's very specific, and it's called a sandwich technique because sometimes you use two different products to put on the superficial and the deep area, so it's like a sandwich.
They support each other.
Exactly. The technique, why we do so is because we know that the volume loss is not only bones, we also have soft tissues. In the past, we put big amounts, so we actually push everything upwards, but we realized that it's not effective, it's not efficient. And the other thing is we use a lot of amount, and fillers is not cost effective. Now what we are using is minimal effective dose, the smallest amount to create the biggest results. And this is what we see. Throughout very small amount, we use 3 different types of fillers. That means
it's algenic with 3 different
concentration. And with 3 different concentration, we can actually touch up the areas that we want to without having your face look distorted. So the areas that we target, the entry point is here. The reason is I can actually target the 3 areas that I want to target. For one, this is called the V-frame deformity. The V-frame deformity is actually, it's called a V-frame deformity because it's in the shape of a V. So when it's a V, this V-frame deformity builds through aging. As most of the soft tissue moves inwards and downwards, you start to see a bit of hollowing there. We used to think that this whole thing is a defect. That means the whole thing actually deflates. But we realize that the real area that deflates is only here. So we don't have to target the whole face, but just this area. This is the V-frame deformity. The second area that we target is called lateral orbital floor. It's right here. The bone structures, as we know, that the orbital frame, that means the orbit is like a hollowing on the frame. Over here, if you look at the skeleton, there's always a hole. So as the first part that goes through aging and resorb is right here. It's right at the corner. It's very close to the angle of the eyes here. So this is what we call the lateral orbital floor, and this is one of the most important part for us to treat for any kind of ethnicity, any kind of age, and any kind of cultural differences, because this is one of the areas that changes the earliest. We say as early as 20 years old. So the other area we target is called T-hollow. I gave it this name called T-hollow because we used to call a temple hollowing. It's not really temple because this T-hollow connects the frontalis, which is the forehead muscles, the temple muscles, and the orbicularis oculi muscles, which is the eye muscles. So this hollow connects these 3 muscles, and when I place in the filler, is not all about putting volume. It's to support all 3 muscles at one go. And when you support the muscles behave younger. And that's where we see improvement. The other area that I did was I actually put a little bit on your temples and the forehead to actually make it rounder and smoother on those areas. One more area that I target is called canine fossa. This is the area that actually is the most prominent areas that we see with aging, especially with Asians. What will happen is because we have pronalism, that means our teeth looks outwards a little bit more. As we age, these bone structures resorb and makes this hollow even worse because we have pronalism. So this is one of areas, especially for Asians, we really have to target this area on the face. The other area that I actually place in is what we call a mandibular angle. You have a really great mandibular angle, that means it's very defined. If you look at a lot of people as they age, this area becomes less and less prominent. It looks like the whole thing, the face and the neck connects to one whole teeth. Because one of the reasons is they lose this bone structure, and when it becomes smaller, what will happen is most of the soft tissue will move downwards, inwards and downwards, and you start to develop what we call a jowling. And this is where you see this line over here. And what we do is we place fillers here to pull things up like this. And sometimes we even place a little bit of fillers on the side, so the whole thing will stretch up and become, you look more youthful.
How long will this?
Okay, so for any fillers, I think it lasts for a very long time. It depends on the areas that we target. So once it integrates with tissue, it will still look very good. But as we age, they'll still have bone loss and they still have soft tissue moving. I generally suggest do it once a year. We come back and we might not put it in the same area because we have to look at how much of bone resorption and soft tissue migration has happened, and we target accordingly.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Hey, no problem.